Hi folks, this is all the fruit, and here I have Vitis labrusca, maybe the most amazing grapevine species in the world. Well, when I was a teenager, my grandfather had one of those grapes behind his house in a north-facing shady area. We are not living in a grape growing area, but everybody had a couple grapevines in front of their houses, usually in the sun. Usually you had to fertilize them, you had to spray them with a lot of pesticides, you had to cut them. You even had to bury some of the grapevines during the winter to protect them from frost. And still you wouldn't eat grapes from most varieties in every year. And in some years all those fancy varieties would not bear a single grape and sometimes even lose their leaves due to the unfavorable climate and pests. But this stuff here, growing behind the house of my grandfather, just hung on a wire and growing up some trees in the shade, produced tasty grapes every year. It was amazing, without spraying, without cutting, without any care. Then when I came to Germany, I found this stuff again, growing in abandoned or semi-abandoned gardens. Those gardens are not abandoned, but nobody is taking care of those grapes, and they are still growing. The Foxgrapes, yeah, the foxes like them. The foxes around here eat them, but they're even more popular with badgers and wild boar. And yeah, if this was not amazing enough, when I was in Java, in the tropical equatorial lowlands of Indonesia, I saw the same grape. So the same grape that grows in the cold Balkan mountains also grows in the most tropical areas of the world. And when I started reading about those infamous, forbidden, illegal grapevines of the Americans, Vitis labrusca struck me as the most interesting one. The funny thing is, it's also the only one I can identify with certainty. How can you identify it? Well, it is supposed to have tendrils, continuous tendrils, opposite every leaf, either tendrils or grapes. Let's see. Here they cut the tendril, here is a tendril, here is a side branch. Let me look here. Okay, no tendril here. That's interesting. Well, there was a tendril here, no tendril here. It seems like those Vitis labrusca grapes, they have those long grapevines, and then they have those shorter shoots, which not always have a tendril opposite every leaf. And so yeah, it's quite difficult to identify Vitis labrusca. I thought that here I had finally found a plant which has tendrils opposite every leaf, but now during the filming I realize actually there are some cases, especially on those short shoots, where there is nothing. Still pretty sure this is the Foxgrape Vitis labrusca. Well, here are small underdeveloped tendrils. Well, if you think it's something else, please tell me. Here again, those short shoots, short vines, they don't have tendrils everywhere, but the long ones, well, this has a side branch. Here is a tendril, 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 tendrils everywhere. Vitis labrusca. Well, even the history of this grape is incredibly interesting, but it's by far not the most interesting thing. Well, it said that those were maybe the grapes the Vikings found in Newfoundland. Well, Newfoundland is quite a Nordic part of the world. It's in Canada, and those grapes are growing there in this harsh climate. And it said that those grapes maybe prompted the Vikings to call America Winland or Wineland. Interesting. It's possible that the first European name of America is derived from the Foxgrape. Well, then later it was the first species, the first American grape species described by Linné, you know, the guy who described all those plants and animals. And, well, for wine production it was never very popular, but it was popular for a lot of other reasons, and it has become popular all over the world. That's the most amazing part of all. Well, in America, where it comes from, it's not used a lot for wine. Americans, they seem to tolerate the foxy taste of some grapes, but this stuff is used for wine only on a very small scale. But it's very popular for making grape juice and jelly and stuff like that. And yeah, I think most of the grape juice and jelly production in North America comes actually from Vitis labrusca and hybrids and varieties with the where Vitis labrusca is one of the parents. Well, then in the mid 19th century, Vitis labrusca and others got introduced to Europe and destroyed the European wine production. And nowadays, basically, European grape wines can be grown almost only when grafted on American wines to protect them from phylloxera. And also the European grape vines have to be sprayed against the American mildew, Vitis labrusca and other grape vines introduced to Europe. But it gets even more amazing. Well, this grapevine, which grows in cold places like Newfoundland, well, it also grows in warmer places like Georgia in the US. But this grapevine, which can tolerate Canadian climate, well, in the 19th century, it got developed into varieties which are now the backbone of tropical grape production. You know, grape production in places like India and Brazil and Indonesia, in tropical and equatorial regions. Yes, somehow this thing is really able to survive in those tropical areas. For example, the varieties Isabella or Concord. Yeah, so it seems to be the grape wine species with the biggest ecological or climatical amplitude, from the frozen shores of Newfoundland all the way to the hot and humid lowlands of Java, where I have encountered it many times in the city of Yogyakarta. Quite an amazing grape. Unfortunately, in Europe it's not entirely legal to cultivate and sell it. The flavor is amazing. It's so much more rich than the flavor of European grapes. Nice and sweet. When you chew the thick skin, it's sour. Oh, the skin is sour, but the flesh is sweet. It has a lot of strange flavors, not so common, well, not existing in European grapes. Yeah, people describe them as strawberry. Yeah, you could describe them as strawberry. You could also describe them as yeah, there is something strawberry-like about them, but also other flavors. The skin is very thick. I never eat the skin of the American grapes. I always spit it out. The pulp is jelly-like. Well, I guess that's one of the prerequisites for becoming the father of the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That's where the jelly for the American national peanut butter and jelly sandwich comes from. Yeah. Amazing taste. Commercial wine growers hate this thing because they say that it houses phylloxera and mildew. They're also afraid that many small wine growers, people who just produce 20-30 liters of wine a year, use this stuff. They don't need to buy any of the fancy equipment, they don't need to buy any of the fancy pesticides. This stuff will grow everywhere. And of course, in Europe, where we have an overproduction of wine, the wine lobby is afraid that this and other varieties will start a wine production in colder areas of Europe. They say we cannot even sell the wine from the warm traditional wine growing areas, and now you want to spread wine cultivation all the way to the north to Scandinavia with all those hardy American species and hybrids and varieties. We don't want this. So yeah, this is why this is one of those infamous grapevines of the Americans, which were forbidden, which were banned by Hitler and now by the European Union. It's illegal to plant them around here, but since it's almost impossible to kill them, a lot of those grapevines are many decades old. And yeah, I haven't seen those impressive giant stems of Vitis labrusca, which were so famous in the US. They say there were stems almost up to a foot thick or over 30 centimeters. But even those pretty thin grapevines around here, they must be many decades old, because, well, for the last over 8 years it has been illegal to plant them, so they must be that old. So folks, this was Vitis labrusca, maybe the most amazing grapevine in the world, and definitely the most widespread grapevine in the world. The grapevine that maybe gave America its first European name, long before Amerigo Vespucci was even born. And the grapevine that most probably destroyed the European wine production in the 19th century, won a war against Hitler in the 20th century, and is the base for the tropical grapevine, for the tropical grape production in the 21st century. So stay tuned for a lot more fruit videos from the beautiful city of Heidelberg. Well, since I'm here in this place with a great view, I'll show it to you, to the few of you who made it to the end of the video. Yes, stay tuned for a lot more fruit videos from the beautiful city of Heidelberg, and don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe.